Get in the back, Evan. Grandma says you're coming with us. Your mom can fight it out in court. That was the sentence I heard as I ran across the parking lot, my 9-year-old son halfway inside my ex-mother-in-law's SUV. His little sneaker scraping the doorframe like he was trying to stop himself without anyone noticing. His eyes found mine and went huge. Not crying, not yelling, just that silent, trapped look kids get when the adults around them have decided they don't get choices. I didn't even feel my feet hit the pavement. I felt blood in my ears. "Step away from my child," I said, loud enough that people turned, but not loud enough to sound panicked, because panic is what manipulators feed on. Darlene didn't flinch. She had her sunglasses on even though it was cloudy, the way she always did when she wanted to pretend she was unbothered. One hand on Evan's shoulder like she owned him, the other hand holding a manila folder. "Oh, good," she said, like I'd arrived for a scheduled meeting. "You're here. This will be easier." Evan's backpack dangled off one shoulder. His lunchbox was open, grapes spilled on the ground, crushed under a tire. He looked small in a way that made my throat close. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Why are you touching him?" Darlene lifted the folder. "I'm exercising my rights." "Your what?" She slid a paper out with slow fingers, like she was revealing something sacred. "Temporary guardianship authorization. Signed by his father. My ex-husband, Mark. The man who couldn't remember to pay his own phone bill without a reminder ping. I didn't reach for the paper. I didn't want her to see me shake. "This is fake," I said. Darlene smiled, calm and patient, like I was the one being unreasonable. "It's notarized." My stomach dropped. Notarized. That word is designed to make people give up. Evan made a tiny noise. Not quite a sob, not quite a breath. His fingers were clenched tight around a little plastic bracelet, one of those neon ones kids trade at school. It looked like he'd been twisting it so hard it was going to snap. "Evan," I said, softer now, "come to me, right now." He moved 1 inch, then stopped. His eyes flicked to Darlene, like he needed permission. That did something to me I can't describe without swearing. Darlene leaned down toward him, her voice sweet enough to rot teeth. "Honey, your mom's upset. You remember what we talked about. If you come with Grandma, nobody gets in trouble." Evan swallowed. He didn't move. His face was pale, and I really noticed how red his wrists were. Like someone had scrubbed him. Like soap and water couldn't wash off whatever they told him he was. I stepped closer. "What did you tell him?" Darlene straightened. "We told him the truth. About family." I heard my own voice go quiet. "Don't say family like it's a weapon." She sighed like I was exhausting. "Renee, don't make this dramatic. Mark is his father. Mark gets a say. And frankly, it's time somebody taught you that you're not the only decision maker." Behind her, Mark stood near the curb with his hands in his pockets, staring at his shoes. He looked like a teenager who got caught shoplifting. Not a grown man trying to take his child. "Mark," I said, still not taking my eyes off Evan. "Explain, right now." Mark cleared his throat. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" He glanced at Darlene, and I saw it, the same old dynamic. She speaks. He follows. Darlene tapped the paper with one manicured nail. "We're simply making sure Evan is supported properly. You've been difficult lately." "Because you cornered my child," I said. Darlene's smile didn't move. "Because you refused to do what was right." A school staff member, a woman in a yellow safety vest, stepped toward us, uncertain. "Is everything okay?" Darlene turned instantly warm, like flipping a switch. "Oh yes. Family matter. We're just picking him up today." My chest went tight. "No, you're not." The woman looked between us. "Ma'am, are you on the pickup list?" I opened my mouth, but Darlene was faster. "We're authorized today." She waved the notarized paper like it was a hall pass. His father signed. "This is all legal." Evan flinched at the word legal, like he'd been hearing it all week. I crouched, right there in the parking lot, so Evan could see my face. Hey, look at me. His eyes finally locked onto mine. You are not in trouble, I said. Do you hear me? Not you. His lower lip trembled. He nodded once, tiny. I stood back up, and my voice went calm in a way that surprised even me. Call the principal, I told the staff member. Right now, and tell them this is an attempted removal without my consent. Darlene's head tilted. Attempted removal? Renee, don't be ridiculous. I took my phone out, held it up. I'm also calling the police. Mark's eyes snapped up. Renee, don't, I said, cutting him off. Not one more word to make this seem normal. Darlene's smile finally cracked, just a hairline fracture. You're going to embarrass Evan. I stared at her. You already did. Evan made a small, broken sound, and I saw his hands. There were little half-moon marks on his palm where his nails had dug in. He'd been holding himself together all day. I dialed. My thumb didn't shake. My heart did. When the operator answered, I said, My ex-husband's mother is trying to take my child from school with paperwork I did not consent to. My child is scared. I need an officer here. Darlene's mouth opened like she was offended by the idea that consequences existed. Evan, I said again, step away from the car and come to me. This time, he moved. 2 steps. 3. Then he broke into a run and slammed into my stomach like he was trying to climb back inside me. He smelled like disinfectant and fear. I wrapped my arms around him, and I felt the truth like a punch. Whatever happened before I got here was worse than what I was seeing, and I hadn't even opened that folder yet. The officer arrived fast, which told me the school had called too. Darlene switched into her respectable citizen voice. Mark tried to look supportive while staying invisible. Evan stayed pressed against my side, one hand gripping my sweatshirt like it was a rope. The officer, young, tired eyes, polite, asked for the paperwork. Darlene handed it over like she was doing a favor. Mark wouldn't meet my gaze. I expected the paper to be fake, like an obvious scam. It wasn't. The notary stamp was real. The language was slick, vague, and dangerous in the way legal documents always are when they're written to trap someone. It didn't say I lost custody. It said Mark was authorizing temporary relocation for family support. It used words like welfare and stability. There was even a line about mother's interference with extended family relationships. I laughed once, short and sharp, because the audacity was almost artistic. Do you recognize this signature? The officer asked me, pointing to mine. It was my name. It looked like my handwriting if you squinted. Like someone traced it after seeing it once. No, I said. That's not mine. Darlene gasped, as if I'd just accused her of robbery. Are you serious? Renee, you are unbelievable. Stop talking, I said. Mark finally spoke, voice low. We just needed Evan for a few days. For what? I asked. Darlene answered for him, of course. For peace, for structure, for family. My pulse thudded. Say what you actually mean. Darlene's eyes narrowed behind her sunglasses. You've been withholding him. You've been turning him against us. And you've been refusing to contribute. There it was. The real currency. I looked down at Evan. Did they tell you to pack your backpack? He swallowed and nodded, his throat bobbing. Grandma said, I had to. He started shaking his head, like he didn't want to say it. Then the words came out in a rush, like he'd been holding them in all day. She said if I didn't come, Dad would get mad, and then you'd lose me. My skin went cold. She said I'd lose you? Evan's eyes filled. She said you're already in trouble because you don't help, and if you don't help, then... The judge, he stopped, choking on the word judge like it was a monster under his bed. I looked at Darlene. You told a 9-year-old about judges taking him away. Darlene lifted her shoulders, perfectly calm. Kids need to understand consequences. Consequences, I repeated. For what? Say it. Mark stared at the ground. Darlene's mouth tightened. We're in a hard season, Renee. Everyone is. Mark's been struggling. I've been helping as much as I can. And your refusal to step up has impacted Evan. My jaw clenched. How? Darlene pulled off her sunglasses finally, and her eyes were bright with practiced disappointment. Because he's watching you choose selfishness over family, I stared at her. Then down at Evan's red wrists again. Why are your wrists like that? Evan pulled his hands into his sleeves instantly. My stomach turned. Evan, show me. He hesitated. Mark shifted like he wanted to stop him. That told me enough. Evan slowly pushed back his sleeves. His wrists were raw. Not bleeding, but scraped like he'd been rubbing them against something rough. Like he'd been scrubbing. Like he'd been trying to erase a mistake off his skin. What happened? I asked, and my voice sounded like it didn't belong to me. Evan sniffed, eyes down. Grandma said I had to earn it. Earn what? His face scrunched. The apology. My lungs didn't work for a second. What apology? He whispered. For making Sophie sad. Sophie, Mark's niece, Darlene's other grandkid, the one she posted about like she was a celebrity. I turned my head slowly toward Mark. What did you do? Mark's voice came out thin. It's not a big deal. Then say it out loud. Darlene cut in, irritated now. Sophie has dance nationals. It's expensive. The whole family is pitching in. That's what families do. My hands curled. And you decided my son was a funding source. Darlene's nostrils flared. We asked for support. You refused. So Mark made a decision as Evan's father. What decision, I said, involves telling my child he'll be taken from me? Mark's eyes finally met mine, and for a split second I saw shame. Then it disappeared under the weight of his mother's presence. We needed help, he said. It's temporary. Just until after nationals. I blinked. Nationals? Darlene nodded like she'd won. Sophie has a chance to be seen. Scholarships. Opportunities. It's for her future. And Evan? I asked. What was it for Evan? Darlene's lips pressed into a line. Evan needs to learn loyalty. The officer cleared his throat, uncomfortable. Ma'am, this is a civil matter, but if there's a forged signature, it is forged, I said, and they used it to try to remove my child. That is not civil. That is my son. Evan pressed closer. His voice was tiny. Mom, am I in trouble? I bent down and cupped his face. No, never. You're safe, Darlene scoffed. Safe? You're the one creating chaos. I stood up, and I felt something in me settle. Not rage, not fear, decision. I'm changing everything, I said. More to myself than to them. Mark frowned. Renee. No, I said. You don't get to renee me while your mother is trying to steal my kid in a school parking lot. Hemer. I looked at the officer. I want to file a report for attempted custodial interference and suspected forgery. Darlene's eyes went sharp. You're going to ruin Mark's life. I stared at her. You already ruined Evan's day. Today you don't get more. That night, after Evan finally fell asleep with the hallway light on like he was afraid darkness meant paperwork, I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. I wasn't guessing anymore. I wasn't hoping this was a misunderstanding. I pulled up every document from my divorce, every custody agreement, every school authorization form, every emergency contact list. And then I logged into the app Mark still had access to, the one I'd kept open for co-parenting convenience. There were transfers I didn't recognize. Small ones, frequent ones, like someone siphoning through a straw. Memo lines that made my stomach twist. Family help. Dance. Just this once. I clicked back month by month. It wasn't just about a dance competition. It was a pattern. and I suddenly understood why Darlene wasn't scared of the police. She thought she owned the rules. At midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "If you fight us, Evan will pay for it." I stared at the screen until my eyes burned, and I realized the secret detail I'd missed all day. They weren't only trying to take my money. They were trying to teach my child that I couldn't protect him, and I wasn't going to let that lesson land. I didn't reply to the text. Not because I was being mature. Because anything I typed would have been evidence of me losing control. And Darlene lived for moments like that. She collected them. She used them later with a sad face and a concerned tone. Instead, I took screenshots. I emailed them to myself. I printed them. Then I did the most unglamorous, powerful thing I've ever done. I started making calls. I called the school first thing in the morning and asked for a meeting with the principal, the counselor, and whoever handled student releases. I showed up in a blazer like I was about to pitch a merger, because sometimes you have to speak the language institutions respect. Evan stayed home with my neighbor, and he clung to me before I left. "Are they coming again?" he asked. "No," I said, kissing his forehead. "They can't." He searched my face. "How do you know?" "Because I hadn't known yesterday, and it had nearly cost us everything." "Because I'm fixing it," I said. "And because you told me." That was brave. He didn't look like he felt brave. He looked tired. At school, the principal listened with that expression adults get when they're trying to stay neutral in a situation that isn't neutral at all. "We followed the documentation presented," she said carefully. "It appeared valid." "It had a forged signature," I replied, "and it was used to threaten my child." The counselor's face softened. "Evan was very quiet yesterday." I swallowed. Quiet isn't fine. Quiet is survival. I slid a folder across the table, my real custody order, highlighted. "Only me and his father have pickup rights. No grandparents, no exceptions. And his father is not allowed to sign new releases without my written consent. That's in the agreement." The principal blinked, surprised, like she hadn't expected me to come with receipts. "I want a password placed on his file," I said. "I want his release list locked. I want his teachers informed. And if anyone shows up again claiming authorization, I want law enforcement called before my child is approached." The principal nodded. Slower now. "We can do that." "Good," I said, "because if it happens again, I won't be sitting in this room. I'll be in a courtroom." When I left, my hands were steady. My stomach wasn't. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed again. "Mark." I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered because I wanted him to hear my voice while I was calm. "What?" I said. "Can we talk like adults?" he asked. I laughed softly. "You mean like adults who try to snatch a kid from school?" His voice tightened. "Nobody snatched anyone. Your mother put her hands on my son. She's his grandmother. She's a stranger when she's threatening him." Mark exhaled, frustrated. "You're blowing this up." "No," I said. "You are. You just expected me to keep swallowing it." Silence. Then Mark tried a new angle, softer. "Sophie really needs this, Ren." There it was again. The cousin, the golden child, the excuse. "My son needs safety," I said. "And you don't get to trade that for your niece's trophy." Mark's voice dropped. "It's not a trophy. It's nationals. Scouts. This could change her life. And ruining Evan's life doesn't count?" I shot back. Mark hesitated. That pause was loud. I lowered my voice. "Tell me the truth. How much money do you owe your mother?" "What?" he snapped. "Don't act offended. You came with a notarized paper and a plan." "That's not about dance. That's about desperation." He didn't answer, so I did something that surprised me. I said, "I'm removing your access to my accounts. Effective immediately." Mark's breath hitched. "You can't do that." "I can," I said. "And I am. You're being petty." "Petty," I repeated. "You threatened to take my child. Don't use small words for big damage. He started talking faster, the way he did when he felt control slipping. I didn't threaten anything. Mom just wanted, stop hiding behind her, I cut in. You signed it, Mark. You put your name on something that tried to move my son without me. He went quiet again. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to communicate with me by email only. You're not picking Evan up from school until my lawyer reviews everything. And if your mother contacts my child again, I'm filing for an emergency modification. Mark's voice turned hard. You're not taking my kid. I felt my heartbeat slow. Like my body understood this was the real fight. I'm not taking him from you, I said. You're handing him away every time you choose your mother over his peace. Then I hung up. At home, I logged into the co-parenting app and turned off Mark's permissions one by one. Access removed. Payment methods disconnected. Saved cards deleted. I changed every password to everything. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt like locking a door I should have locked years ago. Evan came back from my neighbor's with a little stuffed shark under his arm, something she'd handed him to keep his hands busy. He sat at the kitchen table and stared at his math homework without really seeing it. Mom, he said quietly, Grandma said you don't love family. I kept my face calm, but something snapped inside my chest. What did you say? I asked. Evan shrugged, small. Nothing. She said, I don't either. If I don't help. Help how? I asked, even though I already knew. He looked down. She said I could do chores at her friend's house, like clean baseboards. And if I did, then I could pay my part. My mouth went dry. Pay your part for what? He whispered. So they don't hate us. I sat down across from him and reached for his hands. He flinched at first, then let me hold them. The skin was still rough. Listen to me, I said. You are not a bill. You are not a bargaining chip. You are not something people rent with money. His eyes got watery. But she said Dad will be disappointed. I took a slow breath. If Dad is disappointed that you didn't suffer enough to make other people happy, then Dad is wrong. Evan blinked like he was trying to reorganize the world in his head. I squeezed his fingers gently. I need you to promise me something. If anyone ever talks to you about judges, or taking you away, or earning love, you tell me immediately. Even if they say it's a secret. He nodded, quick. And Evan, I added. You don't keep secrets for adults, he whispered. Okay. That night, I emailed my lawyer, attached screenshots, bank logs, and the photo I took of the notarized paper. Then I did something else. I posted in Mark's family group chat, not angry, not vague, clear. Do not contact Evan without my permission. Do not approach him at school. Do not ask him for money or work. Any further attempts will be documented and handled legally. Within minutes, replies poured in. Darlene's sister, Mark's cousin, people I barely knew, suddenly experts on parenting. You're overreacting. She's just worried about family. Sophie worked hard for this. I read them, felt my pulse rise, then set the phone down, because the loudest message came from the quietest place. Evan's room. I walked past and saw him asleep with his shoes still on. Kids don't sleep with shoes on unless they think they might need to run, and in that moment, I knew the twist was deeper than money. They had already trained him to live braced. If I didn't stop it now, it would become his normal. If you want to know what I discovered when I traced those dance payments and why Mark suddenly started panicking, hit like and subscribe. Stay with me, because the next part flips everything. 2 days later, Mark showed up at my door without warning. Not alone. Darlene stood beside him like a shadow with lipstick. I didn't open the door all the way. The chain stayed on. Darlene smiled first, as always. We're here to clear the air. Mark looked tired. Not guilty. Tired. Like someone whose lies were getting heavy. Email, I said. You can't just show up. Darlene pressed a hand to her chest. So cold. After everything we've done for you. I stared at her. You threatened my child. Mark flinched. Darlene's smile tightened. Renee, Mark began. This is getting out of hand. I held up my phone, already recording. Keep talking. Darlene's eyes flashed. You're recording us? I'm documenting, I said. Because you like rewriting reality, Mark swallowed. We just want to see Evan. You don't, I said. You want access. Darlene's voice softened, syrupy. Sweetheart, you're making Evan anxious. I almost laughed. The nerve. You made him sleep with his shoes on, I said quietly. For the first time, Darlene's mask slipped. Just a flicker, like she didn't like that I'd noticed. Mark tried again, different tone. Look, Mom shouldn't have said what she said. Fine. We admit that. But you're punishing Sophie. There it is, I said. Always, Sophie. Darlene stepped forward, voice sharpening. Sophie is not always Sophie. Sophie has talent. Sophie has ambition. Sophie is doing something with her life. And Evan is 9, I said. He's doing multiplication tables. Mark's jaw tightened. You don't understand what's at stake. I tilted my head. Then explain. Because your bank transfers say this isn't just a dance fee. Mark froze. That was the first time I saw it real fear. I smiled without humor. Oh, you didn't think I'd look. Darlene's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I kept my voice level. I'm talking about the withdrawals labeled dance that weren't paying a studio. They were going to a sports betting app. Mark's face went pale. Darlene snapped her head toward him. Mark. He opened his mouth, closed it, like a kid caught stealing again. My stomach twisted, not because I was surprised, but because a part of me had hoped I was wrong. You used my account, I said, to cover your gambling. Mark's eyes darted away. It wasn't like, don't, I cut in. Don't shrink it. You stole. Then you tried to take my son when I stopped funding you. Darlene's mouth opened, then shut. She looked at Mark like she'd been slapped. Tell her, I said to him. Tell her how much you owe. Mark's voice came out small. It's not just me. Darlene's face hardened. What does that mean? Mark rubbed his forehead. Sophie's nationals. It's expensive. Heather. Stop, Darlene snapped. Sophie's mother is Heather. Heather can handle her child. Mark looked up, eyes bloodshot. She can't. She's behind on rent. She's maxed out. She asked Mom for help. I stared at them, cold clarity spreading through me. This was the real shape of it. Heather needed money. Darlene didn't want to be the one to say no. Mark had a habit that burned cash, and I was the easiest pipeline. Darlene turned her glare on me like it was my fault. So you went snooping. I went protecting, I said. Because you all made my child think love is paid. Mark's voice rose, desperate. I'm trying to fix it. By taking Evan? I asked. By forging my signature? Darlene bristled. No one forged anything. I lifted my phone. A handwriting analyst will disagree. Darlene's nostrils flared. You are tearing this family apart. I stared at her through the crack of the door. You tore it apart when you decided my son's fear was acceptable collateral. Mark's shoulders sagged. Can we just move on? Move on, I repeated. Like it didn't happen? Darlene's voice turned sweet again, the way it always did right before she got cruel. Renee, think about Evan. He needs his father. He needs his grandmother. He needs stability. I leaned in a little, so my voice could be soft and still cut. Stability, I said, is not men hiding behind their mothers. Stability is not a grandmother teaching a child he can be taken away. Stability is not money disappearing while you smile. Darlene's face hardened. If you keep him from us, we'll take this to court. I nodded. Please do. Mark's head snapped up. Renee, because, I continued, The court will love hearing about the betting app. Mark's mouth fell open. Darlene's eyes went wide, then narrowed to slits. You wouldn't, I shrugged. Try me. Silence stretched. Then Darlene changed tactics again. She always did. She pressed her lips together, eyes suddenly wet, voice trembling like she was the victim. I raised Mark alone after his father left, she said. I sacrificed. I did everything. And now you're treating me like a criminal. I felt my stomach twist, but not with guilt, with disgust. Because Evan had probably heard this exact speech, framed as a lesson. I'm treating you like someone who needs boundaries, I said. Because you do. Mark stepped forward, pleading now. Can I at least talk to Evan? He misses me. I didn't answer immediately, because the truth was complicated. Evan did miss him. Kids miss the person they wish you were, not the person you are. You can email me a request for supervised visitation, I said, through my lawyer. Darlene scoffed. Lawyer. So dramatic. I smiled. Not dramatic. Just done. I started to close the door. Darlene's voice sharpened suddenly. If you do this, Renee, you'll regret it. You don't know what Mark can do. If you weigh, I froze. Is that a threat? Mark's eyes widened. Mom, Darlene's face smoothed. It's a warning. For Evan's sake. I closed the door fully and locked it. My hands were shaking now after, not during. I leaned against the door and slid down to the floor like my bones finally remembered fear. Then my phone buzzed. An email from my lawyer. File for emergency modification. Also, did you know Mark filed a complaint against you last night? Alleging neglect and emotional instability. I stared at the screen. So that was their plan. If they couldn't take Evan with a paper, they'd take him with a story. And suddenly, every sweet word Darlene had said made sense. Not kindness. Strategy. The knock came 3 days later. Not Mark. Not Darlene. A woman with a badge and a neutral face. Child Protective Services. Evan was on the couch building a Lego spaceship. He looked up, saw the stranger, and his hands froze mid-click. I felt my chest tighten, but my voice stayed calm. Hi, can I help you? I'm here to follow up on a report, she said. May I come in? I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, keeping Evan in my peripheral through the window. I'd prefer to speak out here, I said. She nodded. Professional. The report states that your son is frequently left alone, that there's yelling in the home, and that you've been behaving erratically since the divorce. I almost laughed, but it came out like air. That's not true. She watched my face. I'm required to investigate. I understand, I said. And I'm required to protect my child from weaponized lies. Her eyebrows lifted slightly, like she'd heard that phrase before. I handed her a folder. Here's the custody order. Here's my work schedule. Here's my neighbor's contact information for emergency coverage. Here are screenshots of a threat I received after I blocked my ex's family from contacting my son. And here's the police report from the school incident. She blinked, surprised at the thickness of the file. Also, I added, my ex-husband's mother attempted to remove my child from school using a document with a forged signature. After I refused to comply, a CPS report was made. You can draw your own conclusions. The CPS worker's expression shifted, still neutral, but sharper. Who made the report? Take a guess, I said quietly. She looked down at the documents again. I will still need to speak with Evan. I nodded. Of course, with me present. Inside, Evan's fingers were clenched around a Lego piece like he was bracing for impact. I sat beside him on the couch while the CPS worker asked gentle questions. Where do you sleep? Do you eat dinner? Does your mom ever hit you? Evan shook his head quickly. No. Does your mom ever scream? She asked. Evan hesitated, eyes flicking to mine. My heart squeezed. I wanted to answer for him. I didn't. He thought, then said quietly, She gets mad sometimes, but she doesn't scream at me. She cries in the bathroom. The CPS worker's eyes softened just a fraction. I swallowed hard, because hearing my child say that out loud made me feel exposed in a way I didn't like. Not because I was ashamed of being human, but because Darlene would use anything. After the worker left, she paused at the door and said, low enough that Evan couldn't hear, "This looks retaliatory. Keep documenting." I exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. Then the next move came. Mark filed for an emergency custody hearing. He wanted temporary primary custody until Renee resolves her instability. Instability, that word again. Like a label you can slap on a woman and watch the world believe you. My lawyer called it what it was, a power grab. But the part that made my stomach turn wasn't the hearing itself. It was what Evan started doing. He began apologizing for everything. If he dropped a spoon, sorry. If he asked for water, sorry. If he laughed too loud at a cartoon, he'd glance at me, then whisper, sorry. One night, I found him in his room packing his backpack. Not for school. For leaving, he had socks, his shark, and a little photo of us at the beach. I sat on the floor in his doorway, keeping my voice soft. "What are you doing, baby?" He didn't look at me. Just in case. Just in case what? His throat bobbed. Just in case the judge takes me. I felt something in me go hot and cold at the same time. I crawled closer and sat beside him. "Who told you the judge can take you?" he whispered. "Grandma." And Dad said he can make things easier if I just tell the truth. What truth? I asked, even though my heart already knew. Evan's eyes filled. That you're mean. That you don't let me see them. That you're the reason everyone's sad. I closed my eyes for a second because if I didn't, I was going to break in front of him. Then I opened them and forced steadiness into my voice. "Evan," I said, "adults don't get to put their problems on kids. And adults don't get to ask kids to lie so they can win," he sniffed. "But Dad said if I don't, then he'll be mad." I nodded slowly. "He might be, and that's sad. But it's still not your job to fix his feelings." Evan's little shoulders shook. "I don't want anyone mad." "I know," I whispered. "You're kind. That's why they picked you." His eyes snapped up. "Picked me?" I swallowed. "They picked you because you care. Because you want peace. Because you think you can make everyone okay if you just do the right thing." He stared at me, like I described him too accurately. "But here's the truth," I said. "You can't buy peace by hurting yourself." He looked down at his raw wrists, like he suddenly remembered them. I gently took his hands. "You are not responsible for keeping adults happy," he whispered. "Then why do they say I am?" "Because it worked on me for years," I thought. But I didn't say that. I said, "Because some adults confuse control with love." The week before court, my lawyer uncovered something else. A secret I didn't know existed until it was printed on a single line of a bank statement. Darlene had opened a savings account in Evan's name, not for him, using his information. And the deposits into it? They matched the family help. Transfers money pulled from my accounts, rerouted, and labeled as Evan's contributions. They were building a paper trail, a story where my child was financially tied to them. A story where I was the obstacle. When my lawyer said it out loud, my mouth went dry. "This is a custody strategy," she said. "They're creating evidence that Evan belongs with them financially and emotionally." Every base. I stared at the wall, my hands cold. Then my lawyer added, "Also, Mark's gambling debt is bigger than you think." "How big?" I asked. She sighed. "Big enough that Darlene is panicking. Big enough that they might do something stupid." That night, I lay awake listening for every sound. Not because I thought someone would break in, because I knew Darlene didn't break doors. She broke people quietly, and tomorrow was the hearing, the day strangers decided who my son was safest with. Courtrooms don't feel like justice. They feel like paperwork wearing a costume. Mark sat at the table with his lawyer, trying to look stable. Darlene sat behind him, perfectly still, hands folded, expression practiced. Heather was there too, Sophie's mom, watching like this was a performance and I'd ruined her ticket. I wore a simple dress and kept my hair pulled back because I didn't want anything about me to look messy. It's disgusting that women have to think like that, but I wasn't here for principles. I was here for Evan. My lawyer spoke first. Calm, clean, evidence-driven. She laid out the school incident. The notarized document with a forged signature. The threatening text. The suspicious bank transfers. The account opened in Evan's name without my consent. Mark's lawyer tried to frame it as family conflict and miscommunication. Then my lawyer played a recording. Not the whole thing, just a clip. Darlene's voice, outside my chained door. If you do this, you'll regret it. You don't know what Mark can do. The judge's eyes lifted, sharp. Who is that? My ex-mother-in-law, I said, voice steady. The judge looked toward Mark. Did you authorize your mother to threaten the custodial parent? Mark's face tightened. That wasn't a threat. She was emotional. The judge's gaze didn't soften. Emotional adults don't get to weaponize children. Something inside me loosened just a fraction. Mark's lawyer pivoted. Your Honor, Miss Carter has been denying extended family access, which is emotionally harmful to the child. My lawyer didn't blink. Access was restricted after an attempted unauthorized removal from school and coercive behavior involving the child earning money. The judge's eyes narrowed. Earning money? Explain. My stomach clenched, but my lawyer was already sliding photos forward. Evan's wrists, the scraped skin, the raw redness. The judge's face changed. Not dramatically, just colder. Mark's jaw worked, like he wanted to speak, and realized every word would sink him. Then the judge asked for Evan's counselor's statement. The counselor had written that Evan showed signs of anxiety, linked specifically to fear of being taken away, and that family members had been discussing legal consequences with him in a distressing way. Darlene shifted behind Mark, just once. A tiny movement, the first crack in her control. When it was my turn to speak, I stood slowly. My legs felt heavy, but my voice came out clear. I'm not here to punish anyone, I said. I'm here because my son stopped sleeping like a child. He started sleeping like a person bracing for a raid. Mark's lawyer smirked slightly, like he thought I was being dramatic. I didn't look at him. I looked at the judge. My son thought he had to earn love with pain, I said. He thought a judge was a monster waiting for him if he disappointed the wrong adult. That didn't come from me. Mark's lawyer tried to object. The judge waved him off. I continued, quieter now. Evan deserves to be 9, not a mediator, not a provider, not a pawn in adult finances. The judge's gaze moved to Mark. Mr. Daniels, did you use the child's personal information to open an account? Mark swallowed hard. My mother handled. The judge's voice cut through. Yes or no? Mark's face tightened. Yes. The judge nodded once. Like that answered more than one question. Darlene stood up abruptly. Your Honor, I only did what I did for the family. The judge held up a hand. Ma'am, you are not a party to this custody agreement. Darlene's mouth opened, offended. The judge continued. And you are not permitted to approach this child at school, communicate with him about court matters, or request money or labor from him. If you do, I will consider it harassment. Darlene looked like she'd been slapped. Mark's shoulders sank. The decision came down. Temporary custody remained with me. Mark's visitation would be supervised until he completed parenting classes and financial counseling. And a specific order typed and read aloud stated that Darlene and extended family were prohibited from contacting Evan unsupervised or involving him in financial matters. I didn't cry in the courtroom. I waited until I got to the car. buckled my seatbelt, and realized my hands were shaking so hard I couldn't turn the key. When I got home, Evan ran to me, searching my face like he could read the verdict in my eyes. "Am I staying?" he asked, voice small. I knelt and wrapped my arms around him. "Yes," I whispered. "You're staying." His whole body sagged like someone finally took a heavy backpack off his shoulders. Weeks passed. The CPS case closed as unfounded. Mark sulked through his supervised visits, acting like the victim of a misunderstanding. Darlene tried twice to send gifts through other relatives, little notes tucked inside, like poison hidden in candy. I returned them unopened. Heather stopped messaging me the moment she realized there was no money coming. Funny how silence can be the most honest confession. Evan started sleeping without the hallway light again. He stopped saying sorry every time he existed. And one night, while I was washing dishes, he walked up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "Mom," he said, "if Grandma says she loves me, why did she make me scared?" I turned off the water and dried my hands, because this was the question that mattered more than court orders. I crouched so we were eye level. "Some people say love," I told him, "when they mean control. And it's confusing, because they can sound the same until you learn the difference." Evan frowned. "How do I know the difference?" I swallowed, choosing my words carefully. "Real love doesn't ask you to hurt yourself to prove it. Real love doesn't make you afraid. Real love doesn't come with a price." He stared at me, then nodded slowly like he was filing it away for later. Near the end of that month, my phone buzzed with one last message from an unknown number. "You won this time, but you'll be sorry when Evan grows up and blames you." I deleted it without replying, because the truth is, maybe Evan will have questions someday. Maybe he'll feel the tug of, but they're family. Kids do, but he'll also have something I didn't have at his age, a mother who chose safety over approval. And now I'm asking you because I know people have strong feelings about this stuff. Where's the line? If someone is family but they manipulate a child, threaten to take them, and use them like a wallet, do you cut them off completely? Or do you keep trying because blood is blood? Drop your take in the comments and share this with someone who needs to hear it, because I swear, the most dangerous people aren't always the loud villains. Sometimes they're the relatives who smile and say, "I'm only doing this for the family."